lack of
integrity,
professionalism, and no
accountability at every level.
These are the interesting times. Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnston and welcome to The Interesting Times, which is a show that likes to take a sideways swipe at politics right here in the UK. There is, of course, only one real story happening this week.
Breaking news if you've just joined us. It's about Philip Schofield, who, it turns out, had an affair.
And it's not that one.
ITV also revealed it had questioned both presenter Philip Schofield and the young man he was having an affair with as recently as this month.
No, not that story.
Predictably, high-profile figures in the media are offering mild words of support for sex liar Philip Schofield.
No, honestly, it's the government. The government that...
A big announcement on Saturday from Philip Schofield that he was stepping down.
Oh, stop, please, let's just stop this. He was sacked.
All right. Well, we can't avoid it, can we? So, putting aside the insinuation of this, nothing has been proved. So maybe we should give this guy some space until the full facts are known. Maybe?
I mean, it is getting excruciating to watch the Holly and Phil show. He managed to report his brother, who was a pedo, but according to Emily Thornberry, Starmer, he was head of the CPS at the time, and he let down pedo Jimmy Savile's victims. So there's some connection there as well.
Edwina Curry. Who do you think's more dysfunctional, Edwina? Because they both seem like quite dysfunctional pairings to me.
It'll all come out in the wash, and it hasn't. The fact that Philip Schofield has made a rather grovelling apology to the Daily Mail in the form of an email, there seems to be this understanding that that's it now, everything will move on, and it's not the case, I'm afraid, because what it actually does is open up more questions as to what happened.
Oh. OK, so yes, Philip Schofield did lie to his wife by having an affair. And we just heard from Andrea Jenkins, a Conservative MP who had an extramarital affair with another Tory MP, Jack Lepresti, and Edwina Curry, former Conservative MP, laughing along in the middle there, who had an extramarital affair with the ex-Tory Prime Minister John Major, and Nadine Dorries, who has not had an extramarital affair that we know of. And the fact that they are all calling out Philip Schofield like this, you might consider a little bit hypocritical. Well, get ready, because it's about to get hyper-hypocritical.
Leave him alone. You know, Boris has left government now. Just leave him alone.
When you said that you're pretty sure that Boris Johnson, he did break the rules, he must have broken the rules, that you think he did break the ministerial code, but actually that in itself shouldn't be enough to make him resign. Is that what you're saying? I just want to be clear.
Ranga, I don't care. I really don't care.
It's as if, having buried Boris, they want to dig him up so they can execute him all over again.
But they need to leave Boris alone now. Carrie's heavily pregnant. Just leave him alone.
Yeah, leave Boris alone. He didn't cheat on his wives. He didn't cheat on his current wife. He didn't cheat on his current wife that we know of. Shut up. Besides, Philip Schofield used his position of power to get his lover a job that... Shut up. Want to know how ridiculous all of this is? Listen to Nadine Dorries talking about Philip Schofield and tell me you're not thinking of someone else as she says this.
So there's this thing, isn't there? There are men particularly, who have positions of authority or trust and power, kind of think they're above the law and above those standards that the rest of us are held by.
A fact that was not lost on Laura Koonsberg.
You talk there about men in power, Nadine Dorries, obviously with a very different set of circumstances. There's been rather a lot of rumpus about your old friend Boris Johnson and some of his behaviour when he was still in power.
Anybody who thinks that just weeks before the Privileges Committee were about to announce their findings into the inquiry, that this just happened to be discovered and found and reported, I'm afraid, it's for the birds.
Twit you. Twit you. All right, so that's really what we should be talking about. This story relates to the COVID inquiry set up by Boris Johnson in May last year to look into how the UK government dealt with the pandemic. This isn't expected to conclude until 2026, so I don't want to prejudge anything, but I think it's fair to say that they're not going to be getting any 5-star reviews on Yelp. The latest problem for the COVID inquiry is this.
Ministers are preparing for a high-profile legal battle with the inquiry into the COVID-19 pandemic as the government seeks to challenge the inquiry's demands for Boris Johnson's redacted WhatsApp messages and notebooks.
So the government is now taking the COVID inquiry to court to stop it from gathering the evidence for an inquiry. And how do the experts think that'll go?
I think it's actually quite a simple thing that the public inquiry has these powers. So even if the government are taking it to judicial review, they're likely to lose that.
These things aren't being made public, they're just being requested by the inquiry the government has established. And there doesn't seem to be a problem with that. So I'm not sure the government has really thought this through politically.
I would have thought that Heather Hallett would be likely to succeed on this one.
A belief that appears to be shared by, bizarrely, the Conservative Party.
Ministers are spending a lot of time talking about other things when perhaps they should have been spending more time talking about COVID. That is relevant to her.
I have to be careful, but I would tell you that I would be very surprised if a court doesn't take that view.
Oh, and do you remember this?
This government will have integrity, professionalism, and accountability at every level.
Well, it appears Sunak has a new, slightly longer slogan.
Are you prepared to get into a legal battle with a public inquiry? Some senior legal figures think you'll lose that fight.
Again, not going to comment on the speculation, but we are carefully considering next steps, and the government is confident in its position. The government's carefully considering its position, but it's confident in the approach that it's taken. Government's considering very carefully next steps, but it's confident in its... We're carefully considering next steps, but the government is confident in its position. The government is considering next steps carefully, but has been confident in its position. We're confident in our position, but are carefully considering next steps. And again, carefully considering next steps.
Or, I'm saying nothing until I've spoken to my lawyers. Downing Street have said they won't hand over the documents and that they've lost it, or their dog ate it.
Because they made the claims about these messages, and now they're saying, oh, we don't have any of the messages or the diaries.
Well, it's really very strange, isn't it, to be resisting handing over things that you now claim you don't have is just rather odd.
I don't think the government have got a leg to stand on. There seem to me to be a number of issues here. First of all, the chair, who's a very distinguished ex-judge, is saying, I decide what's relevant, not you. Baroness Hallett has said, well, one of the things I'm investigating, and you've asked me, the government, to investigate this, is how you took decisions. There's a big issue, she says, as to whether or not the Prime Minister was sufficiently focused on COVID throughout the period he was making decisions. So I want to see what else was going on.
What else was going on? I imagine it'll be meetings. Even Boris Johnson has handed over all his WhatsApp and sent a letter saying he has no problem handing over his notebooks as well. 2nd of June 2023. We will all remember where we were and what we were doing when we heard the news Boris Johnson was being open and honest. Yeah, about that.
Now, yesterday, Mr. Johnson said all his material, including WhatsApps and notebooks requested by the inquiry, had been handed to the Cabinet Office in full. The Cabinet Office, or rather the government lawyer tonight, says that's not right. We have not been able to verify the completeness of this material. It does not cover the whole of the specified time period, but only the period from May 2021, when the former Prime Minister acquired a new phone.
Yes, Johnson called the inquiry in May 2021 and in the same month changed phones and numbers and has been told he can no longer access the old one safely. All right, he can't, but I'm sure somebody who isn't so morally compromised can. It's clear Johnson's going down and his final wish is to take everybody with him. So we can probably trace back to when these problems for the government started, which was July last year, when Johnson and Baroness Hallett sat down and they agreed the terms of reference for the inquiry. Baroness Hallett, in case you hadn't already gathered, is a remarkable individual. She was the first woman to chair the Bar Council, led the inquiry into the 7/7 bombings, and was named the 8th most powerful woman in the country in 2013. Sitting down with someone who needed 7 people to tell him if having a glass of bubbly and singing ABBA songs was a work do. Safe to say, only one party was taking notes that particular day. Now, obviously, the government were hoping that this inquiry would be like the other ones they had, like the Russia report, where nobody looks into Russian interference in politics in the UK, and so found no Russian interference in politics in the UK. Or the Brexit report? You remember the Brexit report? Exactly. Didn't have one. But they've gone down the route of picking someone who knows what they're doing and takes their role seriously. Honestly, it's Sue Gray all over again. And Heather Hallett is not messing about.
In a letter on February the 3rd, so she says, in relation to the response to COVID-19, did you have any concerns regarding the performance of any cabinet minister between January 22 and February 22? Did you receive advice from the then cabinet secretary that Matt Hancock should be removed from his position? Baronet Hallett asks Boris Johnson. To what extent did you believe that coronavirus was akin to influenza? Did you hold and express the initial view that COVID-19 was not a serious threat? Why did you not attend any COBRA meetings in relation to COVID-19 prior to 2nd of March 2022, given the seriousness of the emergency?
The formidable woman against the formaldehyde man. So, this is where we are. The UK government is taking to court a retired judge to stop her from accessing the information from an inquiry they ordered. And I've been told they will lose. It'd be funny if we weren't paying for it. Is it me, or is Johnson running everywhere?
Behaviour during the pandemic, Mr. Johnson. Morning, Boris. Do you have a sec?
Just so you know, never interviews here. Interviews in London, OK?
OK, and this is Johnson in London. And that's it. No time to talk about Kay Burley talking to an AI robot.
I may, down the barrel if I may. Ada, tell me, should I be scared of you?
Hello there. Thank you for speaking with me, Kay.
Who's going to win the Epsom Derby?
As a humanoid, I cannot answer this.
Blank expression, monotone voice, inability to give a relevant or direct answer. This is something all too familiar with us in the UK.
Thank you for your time with us this morning.
It's very good to have me on. Thank you very much.
An embarrassing U-turn for the government by any measure.
I think it's just fantastic.
Because I'm a normal person now.
Today, anybody over 30 can get your vaccine, so get out there and get your vaccine.
Are you worried about Dominic Cummings giving evidence today, Mr. Hancock?
Absolutely fantastic being here this morning with Matt Hancock. My second visit this week, actually, seeing some of the amazing work that the staff are doing here at the hospital in quite incredible circumstances, really.
Right? And it's just like, just be normal.
Because I'm going to say something that I'd like you to listen to. I'm a human being.
Sure you are, C3PO. Although, let's be honest, that's actually an example of artificial unintelligence. No time to talk about Nadeem Sahawi, who wrote a piece in The Telegraph demanding that the inheritance tax is scrapped, saying it's morally wrong. Sahawi, who, if you remember, was the man in charge of taxes and didn't think it was right to pay any taxes, was joined in agreement by fascist cotton bud Jacob Grease's dogs.
Benjamin Franklin, our old friend, said nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. Inheritance tax raises relatively little money in the grand scheme of government finances, 1%, actually slightly less. It's a pernicious tax because it falls on assets people have already been taxed on. It's fair, isn't it, Michael? Because people have already been taxed on their money as they've earned it.
OK, just to be clear, they aren't paying taxes again, they're dead. The people who inherit the property pay the tax, but that's only at £325,000. Also, it only affects 5% of the population, and it's £7 billion. It's not a small amount to us that have to pay taxes, and that money pays for things like schools and the NHS. So, to misquote Benjamin Franklin, the only certain things in life are death, taxes, and Jacob Rees-Mogg talking bollocks. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you are enjoying these vids, then please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit all the notification bell, and I'll see you all Wednesday. Take care.